You know, in a few moments, we're going to show you a video which celebrates our 60 years of ministry. And I've done a lot of reflecting this year and about the history of World Vision, and I've asked the question, why? Why did World Vision become what is arguably the most significant NGO in the world? Think about this statement for a moment and see if you think it's true. World Vision is the largest and best resourced movement of Christians on behalf of the poor in the history of the Christian faith. The largest and best resourced movement on behalf of the poor in the history of the Christian faith. But why? Why World Vision? Just after World War II, when Dr. Pierce founded this organization, there were thousands of small and even smaller mission agencies around the world. Many were born in that period just after World War II. What made World Vision different? What was different about our DNA? You know, I've often marveled at the audacity of this man, Bob Pierce. He had no money. He had no degree in international development. He had no roadmap for the future of this organization. And when World Vision was founded in 1950 in Portland, he had to move into a borrowed office at the Youth for Christ office in Portland, Oregon, and he was the only employee. And so what did he decide to name this tiny little speck of an organization? World Vision. World Vision. What irrational boldness he had. How insane it must have sounded to those that were signing the incorporating papers when he filed those papers to start World Vision. Bob Pierce was a David standing before the Goliath of global poverty, like Moses standing before Pharaoh, like Paul standing before Caesar. World Vision, nothing less. So what was it that made this little organization become a Goliath in the world of NGOs? The simple answer is provided, I think, in the theme of our conference. God provided. God provided. You see, God provided because He loves the poor and He loves justice more than any of us ever will. You see, Bob Pierce had no plan. He had no roadmap, but God did. God had a plan. But I think there's another reason that God provided. Our forebears at World Vision were faithful. They were faithful in seeking God's will at every decision point. They were faithful in giving God the glory. They were faithful in being messengers of God's love, in bringing the good news of the gospel to the people that they served in the name of Christ. The Apostle Paul wrote, "We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making His appeal through us." I believe that God will continue to provide for World Vision as long as we remain faithful, as long as we remain faithful ambassadors for Christ in this world, bringing to the communities we serve not just bread, but also the bread of life, not just water, but also living water. God will provide. You know, I would just like to close with a story. In my first year at World Vision, back in 1999, I think it was, God gave me a remarkable insight into the spiritual mission of this organization. I was in Peru, 14,000 feet up in the Andes Mountains, in the mud adobe hut of a widow named Octaviana, who had 4 children, clinging to life on the side of that mountain, harsh climate. Her husband had died 9 months earlier. The children were ill. There was no clean water. There was not enough food to eat. You could see the lice, in the children's hair. It was a really depressing situation, and I grabbed this woman's hand, and I asked her what she prayed for. What did she pray for? And she told me through her interpreter that each day she cried out to God, asking Him to send help, asking Him that He would not forget her and her children in their distress, widows and orphans in their distress on that mountainside. She cried out to God in prayer. And at that moment, I had this insight that I was the answer to her prayer. 6,000 miles away from my office in Seattle, 10,000 feet, 14,000 feet up in the Andes Mountains, I was the answer to this woman's prayer. Imagine praying that God would send help, and the president of World Vision United States shows up on your mountain in your living room with resources. That's an answer to prayer. But you see, then I realized something else that's profound, that each one of us is the answer to someone's prayer. World Vision is nothing less than God's answer to millions and millions of prayers across our globe. Even this day, all over the earth, the poor cry out to God in their despair and their suffering. The prayers of the widow and the orphan, the prayers of the alien and the stranger, the prayers of the broken and the exploited and the abused. And we at World Vision, when we are at our very best, are God's answer to those prayers. This organization was built on the lives and work of tens of thousands of faithful staff over these past 6 decades. We were built on the foundation of prayers and reliance on God. We were built on the passion and vision of leaders like Pierce, Engstrom, Mooneyham, Houston, Irving, Hirsch, and now Jenkins. We were built with strategies, financial controls, IT systems, marketing plans, sponsorship programs, LEAP manuals, audits, and we were even built on the blood of martyrs. Watch now this video and celebrate, let us celebrate together the 60 years of God's faithfulness to World Vision.